everyone, it's Kim, and today I'm going to talk about vacations. And I know everybody loves to go on vacation, but unfortunately every vacation has one thing in common, and that's coming back home again. And when I come home, I always come home to an empty refrigerator. It's always bare. I always use everything up before I leave. And sometimes you come home from vacation, that's the last thing you feel like doing is shopping, stocking up the refrigerator, getting something to eat. And I always want to eat healthy again when I get home, because on vacation I'm not usually eating that healthy. So I want to get right back at it when I get home. So what I like to do is I like to prepare a meal, at least one meal, lunch and dinner, before I leave. Stick it in the refrigerator, or in the freezer I mean, so that when I come home I just pop it in the microwave. I have a healthy, fresh meal that I made and I didn't pick up takeout, all ready to go. So this way I can relax a little when I get home, unpack, do what I need to do, and not have to worry about getting food in the refrigerator right away. So I always have my go-to meals. It freezes easily, it's easy to make, and I can have it just before I leave as my last dinner at the same time. So it's like killing two birds with one stone. So I'm going to make a turkey pesto meatloaf. Meatloaf is great because you can pre-slice it and put it in your container, your food container, and it's all ready. You don't have to worry about defrosting it too much because it defrosts really fast once it's sliced. So I have lean ground turkey. I have the 93% ground turkey. I don't recommend using the breast for this recipe because it gets too dry, as I say all the time. So I have one package, which is about 1 1/3 pounds. And to that, I'm going to mix my pesto. I made my homemade pesto from my basil last summer, and it keeps really well. So I'm using that, and that's going to add a lot of flavor as well as moisture to my turkey. So I'm going to add that. I have some more Parmesan cheese. Even though my basil pesto has Parmesan cheese, I'm going to add some more. So I have a couple of tablespoons of that. I have some salt and pepper. Always have to season it. And I have, I like to put a little bit of fresh parsley just because I like those fresh green flakes in my meatloaf. It just makes it look more homemade to me. And I'm using breadcrumbs, dry breadcrumbs. I like to use the 100% whole wheat seasoned breadcrumbs. So I have some of that I'm going to mix in there too. And I'm just going to get my hands dirty. That's why I have my gloves. Oh, I forgot. I sauteed ahead of time some onions and some garlic and a little bit of olive oil, and I'm going to put that in there too. I sauteed it ahead of time. You let it cool a little so you don't put hot onions directly into the cold meat. So I'm going to mix that all together. I like getting messy with my hands. I think it's a lot of fun, especially since the product at the end is so delicious. This is one of my favorite recipes. I love it. My husband actually will eat it without putting ketchup all over it. Just because it's a meatloaf doesn't mean that you have to put ketchup all over it. I actually like to put a little bit of marinara sauce. You can eat it plain because it's delicious plain, but a little bit of marinara sauce on it when you serve it is nice. Alright, so this is nice and mixed. And I have my gloves are falling off. I have a pan with foil on it, and I'm just going to put the meat on and make a loaf. And I'm going to put it into a 350-degree oven for it might take about an hour. You want to check it after about 50 minutes. You want the temperature to get up to be about 160. And you want to check that about 50 minutes in to make sure that you're not going to overcook it, because you really don't want to overcook this. All right, so I have it in my loaf shape. Put it in the oven, 350. And of course, I already have one made for you. And here it is. It's beautiful. and it smells really, really good. I just took it out of the oven. So I'm going to let you know, show you how I like to pack this in my freezer. I have these great little takeout containers that they were too good to throw away, so I'm repurposing them. So I have a couple of them right here. You can make as many as you want. And I'm going to slice up my meatloaf. Into nice, good sized pieces. I'm going to say 2 slices for me and 3 for my husband because he just eats a lot more than I do. This smells so good. Alright, so I'm going to take 2 slices of my meatloaf and I'm going to stick it in my little container. I'm going to put 3 for him, and I'm going to lay it out so that it's not completely in one piece, so it'll defrost faster that way. And then I'm going to take, I have some steamed string beans for my vegetable. I'm just going to lay some of that in there. A nice portion. Got to eat those vegetables when you come home from vacation. And then what I did is I cooked some edamame pasta. I love edamame pasta. It's one of my favorite pastas now. The only ingredient in it is edamame. It's loaded with protein, loaded with fiber, and it tastes good. I like it. So I'm going to, I cooked some already, drained it, and I'm going to put some of that in there too as a little side dish. I'll give a little more to my husband. And the leftovers, it's great for stir fry, anything. It's just delicious. And then I have some marinara sauce, jarred marinara that I'm just gonna pour a little bit on top, a little bit in the pasta. And there you have it. Really healthy and delicious to-go dinners that I'm going to put in the freezer, and they will be ready for me when I get home from vacation. I can just take them out when I get home. If it's late at night, if I get home, I can just take them out of the freezer and put them right in the refrigerator. They'll be defrosted the next day. Or I can just heat these up in the microwave, just like this. Heat it on low a little bit since it is frozen, and then heat it to however hot you want it. Easy, fast, and delicious, I must add. And this isn't just for a freezer meal. Of course you can make this turkey pesto meatloaf anytime, and I highly recommend it. And they make really good meatballs. So that's one thing. And the other thing I like to do is 2 meals, so I can have lunch and dinner. I always find eggs are easy. You just have them in the refrigerator, they last. So everybody usually has eggs in the refrigerator, so I don't worry about breakfast. But my lunch, I'm going to make a vegetarian chili. You can always add meat if you'd like. I'm choosing not to because I want to eat a little bit lighter when I get home from vacation. And so I will show you how to do that. Okay, so I'm back and I have my oil. I have a little bit of olive oil in the pan and I'm heating it up. And I'm going to add my onions, carrots, and celery to the pan and let that saute. Now this vegetarian chili has a lot of vegetables and a lot of beans, so there's plenty of protein in it, lots of fiber, lots of vitamins and minerals, and it's just going to be perfect to get me back on track after vacation. And it's perfect for any time. I like to have something like this for lunch. I don't necessarily always have to have meat every single day, so this is a great way to get that protein and fiber into your diet. I'm going to let this saute a little bit. I'm going to add my mushrooms. I have baby Bella mushrooms. I find they're nice and meaty, and I like to chop them into big chunks. I quartered them. so they're nice and chunky, so it'll be a really meaty texture. And I'm going to add just a little bit of salt to that, and a little bit of pepper. I'm just going to let that cook a little bit. The salt will help draw out a lot of the moisture from the vegetables, or from the mushrooms especially, because mushrooms are very, very high moisture. All right, so I'm going to let that saute for a minute. I'm going to put the top on, and I'll be right back. Okay, so this has cooked for a few minutes, and it's looking good. And now I'm going to add my peppers. I have all sorts of beautiful peppers here. Orange, yellow, green, red, and I have poblano peppers. I didn't have a jalapeno, but if I did, I would certainly add it. Feel free to add any kind of peppers. And I kept them fairly chunky, and I'm just going to mix that into. I'm going to turn my heat up a little higher. And to this, I'm going to add my chipotle peppers in adobo. These come in a can, and they're very spicy. They're smoked jalapenos. To me, they're much spicier than jalapeno peppers. They're smoked, and they have an adobo sauce. So they're delicious. They have a fantastic flavor. They're very spicy. So I'm only going to add one pepper with a little bit of the sauce. And the rest of it, if you have leftover in the can, it freezes really well. You just put it in a Ziploc bag and, squish it really, really thin before you put it in the freezer. That way you can break off pieces very easily when you need it. I'm going to add some dried oregano, and I have my spices here. I have pepper, smoked paprika, chili powder, salt, cumin, and garlic powder. And this is all going to go in here. I like to mix it with the vegetables before I add any liquid, because I like for them to get a little bit toasted as they cook, and it kind of brings out their flavor a little bit more. So I'm going to add that in and mix it around. Okay, I'm going to let this cook for a few more minutes, and then we'll add everything else. All right, so this has been cooking for another few minutes. And it smells amazing. So now I'm going to add, I have a can of diced green chilies. I'm going to add those. I have a can of Rotel tomatoes. These are spicy. You don't have to add spicy tomatoes. You could just use any kind of diced tomato. And I have a can of fire roasted diced tomatoes, which I just love that fire roasted flavor. You can add any kind of tomatoes you like, as I say. And mix that around a little bit. And I'm going to add my beans. I have 3 kinds of beans. I have kidney beans, black beans, and pinto beans. So this makes a real lot, as you can see. This is a huge bowl. But it freezes really well, so you can always have it. Look how beautiful this is with all these colors. And you can also add canned corn if you'd like, or frozen corn. You can add peas. You can add any kind of vegetable, just whatever you want. Now I'm going to add my broth. I am actually going to use some beef broth here. I like to add that beefiness to it, but you don't have to. If you're a vegetarian, you certainly add vegetable broth, or you can just add water. I don't know how much broth I'm going to use now. I only added a cup right now. I'm just going to let this boil down, and I want it to simmer for a while and let all those flavors meld. And I'm going to check back in a few minutes. Okay, so this has cooked down a little bit. Looks beautiful. I am going to add 1 can of chipotle sauce. This is spicy also. I love my chili spicy, but if you don't like to, you can just add a can of tomato sauce, plain tomato sauce, and that would be fine. And I'm also going to squeeze in the juice of a half of a lime. This lime isn't very juicy, is it? Oh, there it goes. Okay. And that's to taste. I find the lime really brightens it up. It kind of needs it because it's spicy, so that brightness of the lime is good. And I also have a little bit of sweetener that I'm going to use. You can use whatever you want. You can use honey, agave syrup, you can use stevia, some sort of, any sugar. You can even add sugar if you'd like. I try to stay away from sugar, so I'm just using a non-caloric sweetener. I like my chili to be a little tiny, slightly bit sweet. I don't like it really sweet, so just a little bit, and I'm going to taste it. That lime it really made it. I'm just going to let it boil just for a few minutes. This doesn't take very long to cook. You don't want all the vegetables to be so mushy. But I do want it to thicken a little bit, so I'm just going to let it boil with the top off, and I'll be back. Okay, so I have my chili. It's still piping hot. Normally I would let it cool down before I put it in a container for you, but I'm going to do this to show you. I chose a couple of containers for the freezer that are flat, so they're not, I don't like too deep ones because they take too long to defrost. So if you put it in a flat container, then you can stick it in the microwave and it defrosts fairly quickly. So I'm just going to scoop out a couple of ladles. And that is it. I mean, that's very simple. Put my top on. After this cools, of course. I'd stick this in the freezer and it's ready to go. I can make as many as I want. And with the leftovers, which actually there won't be because I am going to eat this for the next 2 days, this freezes so well in bigger containers too. So, and then you can take out a larger container if you need it for to feed a few people. It's fantastic. It's delicious. It's healthy, loaded with protein and fiber, and it'll get you right back on track after your vacation. Now, what I like to do generally is whenever I make chili or soup or stew or anything like that, it tastes better after it sits for a couple of days before you put it in the freezer. So I'm going to let that way the flavors would melt. So I made this a couple of days in advance, and I can not only that, but I can nosh on it before I leave, so I can eat healthy just before I leave for my vacation and healthy as soon as I get home. So I hope you enjoy these recipes again, and you have a wonderful day.